So,
Next up is Allison.
next up is Allison to speak about the PHRF Champman Awards, and I will hand it to her.
Okay. Sorry. I'm going to protect the mic, and can everybody hear me? All right. Do I need, because I can speak in a really loud voice without the mic. Still need the mic?
Yeah, you're gonna need the mic
Okay.
for the.
All right.
Zoom.
So we have the 2 awards, and that's just take up a few minutes of your time. The New Racer Award, which is for those people who they're new to racing. We're trying to encourage them. It's 3 or less years of experience as the boat owner, person in charge. Okay. And this is really, it's up to the member club to decide who of their certificates holder are new racers. And we come up with the analysis based on the race results from the season. And we will touch base, and bear in mind that this year our deadline is October 15th.
31st.
Is it 31st? Okay, sorry, my bad. It's a deadline for race results. And just as I think Bill had mentioned, and Owen also, as soon as your event is complete and there's not going to be any protests or anything like that, then send in the results. It's a lot easier. We had a lot of difficulty this last season in getting in a lot of regatta. That seemed to fall by the wayside, and that's the most important bit of data, because that's the interclub stuff. Okay. Just so everybody knows, like, if you won the New Racer Award last year, you're taken off the list for this year. Okay. And the season champs, all those events that are in the season championship, and let me tell you, I do that scoring. And it's this past year was, I think, 57 different events. Each of the events that's in it has to be open. Okay, which means that anybody could plot out their whole season based on the calendar and go racing from one end of the lake to, they could go up to North Bay if they wanted, if they were trailering. They could go wherever it is, and they could participate in an event that would contribute towards the scoring for the season championship, including many events on Georgian Bay. And do recognize that there are some events, not very many, like, as an example, Georgian Bay Regatta, Gyra, Amen, and Washer. Okay, all qualify as an event. Okay, not every single one of those, like, not every single Amen race is an event. Everybody understand what I mean? Any questions? Nope. Good. Okay. That's it. And now it's over to you. Is it not? Nope.
Yeah.
So Allison, thank you very much. 2 things that we want to focus on. One is, we represent Perth Lake, Ontario in significant bodies of water. So it's not Toronto centric. So people who aren't from Toronto may not know what the Champman Award means to anything. So Brian Champman was a sailmaker in Toronto. So many of you here at Etobicoke may know who he is. The folks on the Zoom may not know who he was. He passed away. He was a member of our technical committee and provided a ton of information and really helped move the needle on the information that we wanted. He had a significant impact on the quality of information that was being shared and the ability to build it. So this was a way to honor the legacy that he provided to PHRF. There are a number of people who've left a significant thumbprint, but Brian Champman absolutely left a significant thumbprint. So for the folks who aren't from Toronto, that's whom it was named after. I thought you might want to know that, or wonder why we came up with that name as opposed to some other name. Okay, so moving into race analysis, we have Diana, and we're going to try and get Allison to come and push buttons.
Hi, just for anyone wondering, I have a cold and that's why I have the mask. I just don't want to spread it out to everybody else. Anyways, so the race analysis, for long-term handicappers, they all understand this. You need to send in your race results by October 31st is the new deadline, or as soon as you're done racing for the season, that's fine too. We keep everything. We have files and files and files of all your races. So we hang on to them, we record them. You can send in your actual sail wave BLW files, but if you could do us a favor and just use the extraction utility, which I'll get to later, that's the better option because it sends it into us. We have in our admin office program, a way to import it in a certain fashion. It's got to be set up a certain way. And then it just goes into the system. We find the boats, we mark them, and then it does the analysis. We just do some tweaking, right? Same with a spreadsheet. If you send it in, as long as it's in a fashion that we can easily edit it, then we can make it into the form to easily bring it in. Mixed fleets. I know a lot of clubs out there, you just don't have the racers, but if you can just indicate, if an owner is racing flying sails, that it's marked some way clearly that he's marked, so that we can separate them out. We can't analyze mixed results. We have a choice. It's either flying sails or no flying sails. That's it. So we need to separate out those two fleets so that the analysis will know which rating to use, because that's basically what it is. Our in-house program looks and it says, okay, it's flying sails. It's going to use that boat's flying sails rating. Or if we're importing an NFS fleet, it's going to use that boat's NFS rating. Okay, it's just a simple thing. So the extraction program, it's easy to find. It's on our website. Just go under handicapping, races and scoring, club race results, and into Sailwave. There's a whole list of different things. Go to the next screen. The extraction utility looks like this. So you basically browse, you go and find the file. I just used an old one that I had, and you can enter your club's name in there if you want to. You can also tell it to separate it by division or fleet. That option is there because some clubs use division and some use fleet. The little extraction utility can kind of figure things out, but doesn't always exactly. So if the results come in and they look a little funny, then we may ask you for the actual BLW files because it could have maybe misinterpreted the fleet versus division. Okay. And then all it's going to do is it's going to convert them all. It takes a couple seconds. And then you have the option of which ones you want to download. You can select them all, or you can say, no, I'm not sending in the sharks, and uncheck that one. And then the little box will light up to, do you want to download these or do you want to remove all of them? Or you can go and you can add more files to that. Okay, so you can go to another set of races and download those, and it'll all basically all it's doing is it's going to give you one file instead of doing multiple files. So if you say download the find 5 files, it automatically goes next screen into whatever your browser is using for your default download. Okay, that's just where it's going to go. It's simple converted files. If you do it more than once, it'll be converted files 1, 2, 3, and it goes sequentially depending on what's in your download. That's the file. The zip file is what you need to send into the admin office. That, like I said, the deadline's October 31st. If you missed the deadline, then your results will be held over until the following year, and you will not get the race credit. Every certificate that you issue at your club is eligible for a $5 credit by you submitting your race results in time. Okay. So this is an example of a spreadsheet. Happens to be Etobicoke. Oleg does this every year, and that's fine and dandy. You can see that he split out the divisions: large spinnaker, small spinnaker. And the format is, but I mean, we can manipulate this, but the format for importing for us, for our purpose, is the boat name, the class of boat, the ASP, the skipper's name, and the sail number, and then sequentially across the date of the race and the finish times. Okay, and that's elapsed time, not corrected time. That's elapsed time. Okay, because our system will automatically convert it to corrected time, and then it does its little race analysis portion. The things that you need to note is if there's dying wind, if you can put the date and the wind, that's even better. The wind being less than 5 knots or over 20 knots, you could leave it in and we will assess whether or not we're going to remove it. Sometimes it has an effect, sometimes it doesn't. What I find personally is that sometimes it affects, and you can see the fleets that start later get affected by wind that changes. Whereas there might be a couple fleets that get off the start line okay, and then a couple fleets end up, because of the wind, they can't go. Dying wind where the boats stop, just mark that and we'll just remove it, or you can even remove it. If there's anything in there that you just don't want included, that's fine. Single-handed races, if you can mark those, because we don't analyze those. So what we do is once we get it, we update to the website. There is a section on there you can check your race analysis or race analysis status. It's under searches and queries, and there's a race analysis status at the bottom. And basically what we do is we process them on a first come, first served basis. So as soon as they come in, we start to take a look at them, we'll import them and start to get the analysis done. Once we've imported them, we'll send you a club report. Every division or fleet that you have gets an individual club report. And we also include a review of what we saw in the boats that were imported. If there was any problems or a boat didn't have a certificate, you had to an incomplete certificate, or there was something questionable on it, the rating was off, then we'll question it. It's more for your information to get back to us if there's a problem, because that's what we're looking for, is for you to get back to us and let us know there's a problem. We always, anything that we think is really important, we highlight in red. Next. And this is the club report. Basically, it's just an overview of how that individual did, and you'll get, it will be multiple pages. I think it does 2 boats on a page. And so you can see the overall effect. The numbers in there are probably going to be reflected in the analysis. So if anything looks off on that club report, you should probably let me know. And that way we can take a little look at it. If there's like a race or something, you're kind of like, why is that so far out? It'll also show you if we've taken a race out, it'll show you that as well, because it'll come up blank. So there's 1 report per division or fleet, each boat and how they performed against the others in their fleet. That data is included in the race analysis, and just recently I've opened it up so that I will make a folder. We now have a Google Drive, and we put all those reports up there so that you could even send the link out to your owners and they can look at their own report. What you should do when you get our little email is please read it. There's information in there. We don't just send it for fun. I mean, I just recently had where a club questioned because we had issued an incomplete certificate to their club for a racer that was in one of their events. And he informed me that it was actually an owner at another club. Well, I didn't find out until after we issued the invoice to the club and they saw the guy listed there. Well, that's what the email's for. It's for you guys to let me know so that we can address these things before the end of the season or before we send out the invoice. Look for inaccuracies in the report. Like I said, if there's looks a little bit, then let us know and we'll try to look at it or explain it. You can distribute these things to the racers if you want, and you can post them at your club if you want. Okay. So I think now is Q&A, if anybody has a question.
But also just, and thank you, Diana, but just so everybody knows, how many certificate holders this year? Like 1,400?
Yeah, it's like 1,500.
So that's not helpful. So Allison's point is we're one of the largest, if not the largest, issues of birth certificates in North America at about 1,400. It's been as high as 1,700. That gives us lots of good data, but it also requires that we continue to receive that data because it's garbage in, garbage out, or quality in, quality out. So that's a key component. We also are working closely with some other areas, including Perth Lake, Michigan. There are Perf Lake Michigan Midwest, Perf Midwest, sorry, which captures Midwest Perf, which captures some of Lake Michigan. There are sea state differences. So as an example, a tartan 10 rates differently on Lake Ontario than it does on Lake Erie. Lake Erie, short and shallow, different chop, affects the observed performance of that boat differently than it does here. So if you've ever transitioned or sailed on either one of those lakes, it does seem a little different. Saltwater is less of a consideration to worry about when we talk about our friends on the East Coast or the West Coast, but there is sea state conditions for us. We're observing more easterly wind conditions than there's been the traditional southwest, which changes some of the sea state in Toronto. So I sail out of Niagara in the Lake. We could count on nice flat water. Now we're getting lots of easterlies, which then also affects the way the current comes out of the Niagara River. So it changes the game a little bit. It changes the performance of some of the boats. We have a question on the floor. Yep.
Okay, before we get into questions, there was the earlier question about what are the A and B factors to be used when we had that. So the A factor, this is in the manual. Actually had to go off and Diana quickly looked it up because she has access to the current manual. Anyway, the A factor is 566.431. The B factor is 401.431. Those are the standard ones. Again, that's the number that was optimized for evening racing for Lake Ontario as a group. When you are doing long distance racing and daytime only racing, when we don't have things such as the dying breeze as time goes on, there are different numbers to be used, and that could be used. These numbers will work. There are other numbers that you can put in that will make it a little tighter on the thing. It'll compress your finish times. It reflects the not dying breeze. Again, for this forum, I don't want to get too deep into that beyond to say, yes, it is available. Yes, it is in the manual. Please look at it. And if you have to, check with your district chief, who will probably be able to walk you through the details of it. Wanted to follow up on that. Okay. There's a question on what this is. Oh, sorry.
Oh, I just wasn't clear when you were mentioning, are you suggesting that you don't analyze shorthanded races or racers?
Short-handed races.
Shorthanded races. We don't analyze shorthanded races.
So do you want to we'll take questions from Trevor, Carl, and then come back to Tony, and then we're going to go over here. So Trevor, your question, please.
Okay, thanks. Can you hear me okay? Yeah, okay. I just wanted to go back to the race analysis report. I just had two kind of clarifying questions. One was, I guess the process, is this all boats every year that are reviewed, or is it just as identified? And then the presenter also mentioned if somebody wasn't happy with their rating, they could get a club racing rating. I wondered what the process was for that. Thanks.
Okay, so on the, sorry, hopefully this was, can you hear me on this, on the Zoom now? Yeah, okay. On the review, there are things, when you look at the handicapping, there are things called benchmark boats, which are boats that we have significant numbers of boats who have a long period of results. And those are standardized numbers that we have a high degree of confidence that those numbers are correct. Those tend not to get annualized reviewed. The other is at Central Council, if the boat was reviewed the previous year, it doesn't get reviewed the incoming year. So it isn't every year that it can, that in generally that a boat gets adjusted. So there's some, we try to create some stability that way. Trevor, if that answers the question for you. The other one on the idea of a local handicap or a club specific handicap, be cautious when you do that. You don't want to undermine the overall value of the information that we have to go, oh, all that information, those pages and pages of information, that's crap. I'm going to come up with my own number. So be careful what you do with that. those tend to lead to heated arguments at the bar as to how agitated people get over a 1 second split. So be careful in how you apply that, the latitude that you're allowed. There may be clear outliers that address that, but again, we try and create a process that is as transparent as possible. Anything that gets out of that transparency kind of harms the brand, and you as the handicapper represent the brand, which may make it harder for you. Okay. Does that capture that one? Okay, Trevor?
I guess I'm just, because I'm new to this, hey, so I'm just wondering what the process would be. How would a handicapper kind of go about changing that?
So you speak with your district rep, and those would happen. I would suggest that those would happen, meetings that would happen at a district level to have conversation. Send who an email, or send Owen an email. Owen, as the on Central Council, this is part of his duty and his services on the services to Central Council. So Owen's email is available through the website, or reach out and we can get it to you.
Okay, thank you.
I think we were going to go to, who was next? Trevor, and then
So, hi guys, I'm from, I have a couple of clubs that I'm in, Newcastle Yacht Club and Lagoon City Yacht Club, and neither one of those clubs are PHRF clubs. So my question is, last year I got a certificate for my own boat, and just so I could race on Lake Simcoe Interclub. But what I'd like to know is there some way or something that you can give me to help PHRF Low get into these clubs again? Clubs that aren't supporting?
yeah, so I'll let Allison kind of finish that off. But yeah, if your club is using perf handicaps or would like to, there is criteria on being member clubs, and I think the minimum is 10, not 7. So your club would need to purchase 7 certificates, and ideally those would be issued to 7 boats in your club, and which means you probably have 7 boats racing, and then you can become a member. Your club is a member club of PHRF. The number, one of the reasons for having that number is we invoice to the club, and then the club invoices to the member. Hold on. You can't talk to me. You got to talk to this.
Okay. But I commend you for obtaining a PerfLow certificate, and I would highly recommend that you just continue with that. Yeah, Lagoon City used to be, no, never. Okay. But Newcastle, that's weird. It comes and goes.
Yeah,
And
it's just like membership probably, because we've been at times like 50, 60 boats, and then other years we've had, I think the lowest was even 4. So it's hard.
Yeah. But so I strongly recommend that you continue on with getting your online certificate, and we welcome you to these training sessions and everything. And you can always saddle up to what's the closest to Newcastle, I guess maybe Frenchman's.
Yeah, so this year my boat's in Lagoon City, so it'd be Barrie anyway, I guess, probably.
Yeah, so talk to the folks in Barrie. And good luck in the series.
Okay, so Tony, do you want us to address yours, and then we have one more here, another one here in the room?
I can wait if there's time.
Okay, let's try the one here in the room, and then we'll jump back to you and deal with lunch stuff.
Okay, it's Wayne Parker at Mimicode. Discussion about the primary that factors, the A and B. Using the primary for just based on. This is this on it again. And the full days, up to 2 full days, because our cutoff is about mid-morning on Sunday, started out good morning on Saturday. What factors should we be considering, or a race that could potentially be?
It gets covered up.
Yeah.
Okay, so for those of you at home, that question will be addressed later on. There are some criteria, but again, it's one of those things that is hard to talk about in a large group because it can be so dynamic.
Okay.
So unfortunately, the answer is there is no hard and fast answer.
The loaded question was, is there a point-to-point rating system the way there are in other handicapping systems? And there's been a significant amount of work trying to address it effectively so that there is some fairness to it. It's not as simple as, is it a waterline length? Although there are examples of races where the boats finished exactly, even if they rate exactly the same, they finished by virtue of their water line. The last Somerville race a couple of years ago, that's how that one division finished. But that's not the only factor that factors into it. So it's quite detailed and quite involved. And Owen and Adam will get into that one a little bit yet this evening or this afternoon. Okay, Tony, we can jump into you and then maybe we'll start lunch a little earlier if that's okay by everybody. Tony, you want to go?
Sure. Can you hear me clearly? Because a lot of people are breaking up.
Okay, yeah, we hear you.
Okay, so just a comment on a previous question. As I mentioned, had my handicap going up and down. One year I got a local number and it was simply a matter of the two handicappers and the two fleet captains of the interclubs that were participating. And they said, okay, use this for 1 year. So that was our solution or their solution for it for that year. So that's not part of my question. I just want to explain how it happened here. So my second part of the question is, and to be honest, I am not confident at all that the handicap given to my boat is accurate or correct. I'm a champion racer. I've been a champion racer my whole life. Was in the World's Open at age 17, et cetera, et cetera. So I know how to race. My point is that the system you're using, I think, should be totally modernized. And why don't you switch to something like GPS tracking and just have it reported as part of the results? Because I know for sure two boats that go through the water exactly the same speed throughout the entire race, one boat can finish 10 minutes ahead of the other one because the skipper catches every wind shift, et cetera, gets a better start, rounds the marks better. So, race cues and other GPS tracking systems, if people were required to turn that information in as part of their, what's your average speed on this race, one more number, within 2 or 3 years, you'd have a rock solid database of exactly how fast certain designs go through the water in different wind conditions. And there'd be no question whatsoever then about this boat's potential versus the crew and skipper. Is there a thought of thinking digitally and trying?
Yeah, so let me start by saying, as the president of PHRF, it's my role to be its best cheerleader and its best advocate. What you're suggesting may be better captured if you raced under Portsmouth or some other system. The general catchment for all of it, and again, I don't want to get into a debate or an argument with you, certainly not online here. If you want to have one offline, I'm more than happy to do that. As an identified world champion sailor, there's some expectations on how you would finish. I get that, but the ratings have to be what the ratings are, and the observed performance is what we're operating from.
Okay.
So yeah, there are other rating systems. Different horses for different courses. I don't know if we can be all things to all people. So we're trying to be as much as we can to everybody. That does lead to outliers where people aren't happy. So
yeah, I get you. I don't know if you got the point I'm making. I'm not saying PHRF needs to change its structure. All I'm saying is if you took actual boat speed as part of your information, you could blend that into what you already have and transition over to what you felt is a much more confident number than the estimates from various methods you're using. I'm not saying any changes, just a different source of data.
I think what you're offering is something that may be too sophisticated for the general sailors sailing, and I just think it's maybe potentially too complicated. ORC has all sorts of options that apply relative to that way, and there is ORC options available. Maybe not to you, but there are systems available, and systems come and go. and our system has stood the test of time, not because it's perfect, because it's the least imperfect. And when you identify imperfections, I guess that creates the exception to the rule. So yeah, we're not going to keep everybody happy. And it's not my goal as the president of PERF to keep everybody happy. I'm trying to keep as many people as happy as possible. So that may not be an answer to you. And again, I don't want to get into debate with you here. I'm more than happy to have a conversation any other time, but we'll go from there. Any other questions here? Otherwise, we're a little ahead of schedule and we can move to